Let's say that you're looking to build a strong culture of mentorship at your institution. And one way that you want to track this is by looking at your mentorship program participants, the ones who participated last year, who are also participating this year. Do you have a lot of people returning to your mentorship program year over year? In this video, I'm going to show you how you can do that by exporting program data from multiple years in your partner dashboard and using Excel to compare values year over year. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is, of course, navigate to your partner dashboard, and then we're going to want to export some data. So we'll do that from the exports tab down here. Now we're in this year's program, and out of everyone in this year's program, the folks that could have been eligible to also participate last year would only be our mentors this year, because mentees supposedly are brand new people at your institution. So let's export data for participants only for mentors from this year, just by clicking right here. Then the next thing that you're going to want to do is navigate over to last year's program so that you can also export participant data from there. To do that, you'll click your name up here in the corner, and you can see that it says switch program right over here. Now in this demo, I only have the one program, but for you, if you have multiple programs that have been running for consecutive years, you just pick whichever program you want to compare to over here, and it will take you to that program. So let's say that this is last year's program, and here I want to export participant data, probably for both mentees and mentors. I'll just choose all participants right here. Now, when I've done that export, I'm going to end up with a data set. I have something here for demonstration purposes. Your export is going to have many more columns. Here, we've kind of limited it to the most relevant ones so that we can do a good demonstration. Okay, so we have this year's data right here, the 24-25 program, and then we have last year's data over here. And what we're going to want to do is see, let's say that we want to answer two questions. One is, how many of the matched mentors this year were also matched in last year's program? And secondly, we want to know, out of everyone who participated in last year's program, how many are also matched this year? That will make sense as we go through this. So what we want to do is look at this year's program right over here and kind of compare for this person, Evan, what was their program status from last year? Were they matched? Were they invited, etc.? Now we can do that using a VLOOKUP. I'm going to put in an extra column here on this year's program, and I'm going to call this last year's program status. And we'll build a VLOOKUP just by putting in an equal sign and typing in VLOOKUP. What this formula will do, it will allow you to pick what we're going to call a key or a lookup value that is the same in both data sets, and then go and show you, import for you a value from the other data set that you want to include here. Let me demonstrate. The first thing we need is that lookup value. This is, you can think of it as the key or the value that you want to look up in the other data set. Now, the best one that we can use here is the school ID. I'm just going to click right over here, and that will add it into our formula, because the school ID should be the same year over year. If I had gone by name or email, sometimes those change. People might be using a personal and then a school email address. So we'll stick with the school ID for this one. Next, we need that little comma. And then it's going to ask us for the table array. That is where you want to look for this key value and the value that you want to import. So we want this from last year's data, right? So I'll leave this kind of in progress over here and just navigate over to last year's tab and click and drag to select the relevant columns. And I want to start in the column where the key is, the school ID, and then I'm clicking and dragging all the way over to the column that has the data that I want to import. So that's right over here in column number 5, E. From here, it wants another comma. And now it wants me to tell them the column index number, the column number that contains the data that we want to import. So we said that we want to import program status. That is column E. That is the 5th column starting from our key. So I'll just type in number 5 in the formula right here. Then again, it's going to want a comma, and then it wants something that it's calling the range lookup. This is the answer to a question of, do you want approximate matches to also work here? If you put yes, that says approximate matches are fine, but we do not want approximate matches to the school ID. We only want the exact match to the school ID. Most of the time when you use VLOOKUPs, you're always going to want to put false right here. So that's what our formula is going to look like. I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard, and that will take us back to where we were working right over here. And it tells us that Kimberly Cornish in last year's program was invited. Now, to extend this formula for everybody on the sheet, I'm just going to, on my Windows computer, hold down Control and double click here at the corner. And that will give us a formula for everybody on the sheet. Now, you'll notice that there are quite a few of these NAs. That would indicate that there was no match. This school ID did not exist in last year, meaning Blake Baker did not participate in last year's program. So for the purposes of the questions that we've set out to answer, we're going to want to filter them out. So I'm selecting this row that has all of the headers, and then I'm just going to apply a filter. Now we can hit this little drop down and filter out those that are that were not participating in last year's program. Now we said that we have two questions to answer. The first one was how many of this year's matched mentors were also matched in last year's program? Let me reset this filter and start again by looking at this year's program status and looking only at the matched mentors. On my Windows computer, I'm going to hold down Control Shift and down arrow to select all of the values in this filtered column, and it will give us the countdown over here. That shows us that we had 400 matched mentors in last year's program. Now, how many of them were also matched last year? So let's filter in this column to only the people that were actually matched last year. And again, I'm going to do that Control Shift down button to select everything in this column. That will give us a count of 205, showing that about half of our mentors that are matched this year have participated in last year's program and already had that mentorship experience coming into this year's program. That's really cool. Now, the second question that we wanted to ask was how many of the people that have been invited this year, no, did I get that wrong? How many of last year's participants, how many of the people who were actually matched last year have not signed up for this year, invited but not signed up? So to do that, let's start by clearing the filter. I'm going to just hit that filter and clear it so that we're showing all of the data in all of the columns. And then we wanted to look at last year's matched folks that are also eligible to be in this year. So let's select all the matched people from last year. And let's see, out of those people who were matched last year, who are invited at least, or have some sort of mentor participant status for this year, let's see what their status is this year. And we wanted to look at everyone who has not signed up. So everybody who was matched last year, invited this year, but has not taken action to join the program again. And again, I'll do that Control Shift and down arrow to get a count. And it tells me that there are 54 people that were matched in last year's program and participated, were invited again to this year's program and have not signed up. That could be a group that you might want to reach out to, either to ask them about their experience from last year, if there's any reason why they would not join again, or perhaps with a reminder that we would love for them to also join, especially because they have that experience of mentorship from last year and they can join as mentors for this year. So I hope that was a helpful demonstration of how you can export data from multiple years in your partner dashboard and use spreadsheets to run some sort of analysis to answer whatever questions you have about, for example, building a culture of mentorship on your campus.